Storm has reintroduced the Alpha Crux, a ball that was kind of a cult hero, very popular with tournament players from what I understand about 10 years ago, although that was during a time when I wasn't bowling, so I never got a chance to throw the original. But this new 2026 version has an improved cover on it. It's the GI26, which stands for Game Improvement 26 cover. It has the, as you see on the logo, the original Catalyst core in it, but the biggest difference is they added the amplified inertia AI to it. So it does lower the RG a little bit from the original. If we were to look at the specs on the 15-pound ball, which is what I'm throwing, it's a RG of 248, and it's got a differential of 0.53. It's an asymmetrical core, so the PSA diff is 0.18. Since this is a pretty low RG at 248 and medium to high differential, this ball is going to be relatively smooth. It's supposed to pick up pretty quickly. The cover stock is pretty strong. And so basically it's just going to dig into the lane and be just kind of a smooth arcing ball motion. An interesting note about the core is Storm has used the intact core dynamics post drilling concept. So there's actually a void, as you can see, in the actual core of the bowling ball. And that means when you're drilling the holes, really the core should not be touched, whether you drill it pin up or pin down. So that spot there for thumb in players, where there's a void in the core, the thumb hole will actually miss the core. So that's an interesting idea that the dynamics and the specs of the bowling ball doesn't change during or post drilling. So I chose to drill mine 5 by 4 by 2, as you can see here. The idea that since it's a relatively smooth ball, I didn't want to make the pin too strong. So for me, like a 4.5, 4-inch pin is pretty strong. 5 to 5.5 is a weaker, taller pin distance. So I went with that just so that the ball wouldn't pick up too soon, but still put the PSA at 4 to make sure it still picks up in the mid lane and has some decent continuation down the lane. So I'm bowling at double-decker lanes in Rohnert Park. I happen to be bowling on a house shot, so I know it's difficult to really do real testing on a house shot because there's just such a defined hook spot. An interesting thing about double-decker lanes is that it's a relatively new lane surface, especially compared to a lot of bowling centers in the Northern California Bay Area. So when they hosted the U.S. Open for the women a few years ago, they put in all new lane beds. So the ball pushes through the front pretty easy. And actually this is a decent test for the Alpha Crux given the strength of the cover. And also they don't put a real defined hook spot to the right. So it's not like the ball just picks up immediately. And it's not a huge ratio of oil middle versus the outside part of the lane. So this is a pretty decent testing scenario. So as with all my ball review videos, I will start with my normal release and normal speed and try to play the pattern in the right place. So for double decker, it's around the second arrow. I wasn't sure what was out on the lanes, whether they had just oiled them for league or if there'd been any open play on it. But as you'll see from this first shot, doesn't look like there's been much play on it. I tried to go about 11 or 12 at the arrows out to about 7, and the ball never read the lane. So I was still a little too far away from that defined hook spot that's to the right. So on the next shot, I decided to move farther right and close my angles down a little bit. So instead of looking at 12 and trying to get it out to 7, I was looking at 11 and still trying to hit about 7 down the lane. And as you can see, again, it still didn't make it up the hill. And so it was a combination of both. The ball pushed a little too far down the lane and also just didn't have enough overall friction to get back to hit the pocket. So on this last shot, or third shot, I moved one more to the right and basically tried to keep the angle the same with about a 4-board swing, but get my break point out to 6, figuring there was more friction a little farther right. And this one did finally make it to the pocket, although still not solid, but it went about 10 to 6. And you can see the overall motion very smooth. And I think that's what you'll find with the Alpha Crux. It is just a smooth ball motion, which especially on house patterns is actually a good thing because it's not going to be super responsive off the dry. It'll just, not jump when it reads that friction to the right. And it basically blends out the pattern a little bit. Given everything that I had read or seen about the ball, I would expect it to fall somewhere within the higher end of the bag. Not quite as strong as a Ion Max. Similar motion, just a little less hook overall. So yeah, I think it falls in that realm with the Ion Max, the Equinox Solid, the Hyperdrive. It's that kind of strong ASIM part of the line for SBI products. The next couple of shots that I throw here are more with a straighter release, a little more ball speed, a little less hit. So I'd move right. And again, there isn't a pretty fresh house pattern, but Double Decker doesn't put a ton of friction to the right. So this probably isn't the right release to play until there's more defined hook. But I wanted you to see what it would look like if I went basically right up about 6-7. So that's where these 2 shots go. So as you can see, even for the lower rev players, this ball is still pretty smooth, as it will not, really jump off the dry. It will not be overly responsive, and so you should be able to get right on top of that friction and have the ball just smooth off of it. And then these next 3 shots, I slowed down, moved about 8 left to go about 13, 14 out to about 6 or 7, also still at the break point, just to see what it would look like if we tried to loop it a little bit. And actually on this pattern, it probably looked the best doing this. Again, it didn't get too overly responsive off the dry, but with that strong cover and lower RG and medium differential, it basically made a nice, smooth, continuous ball motion into the pocket. And I struck on all 3 shots when I slowed down and circled it a little bit. And then finally here, these last couple of shots, I moved back with my original release, going about 10 to 6, just to see one more time what it looks like. And then I figured, since I brought the Equinox Solid, that it would be a good comparison. So here you can see I threw the Equinox Solid in the exact same spot. They looked very similar to me. I would say that the Equinox was probably a smidge cleaner, got a little farther down the lane, got forward a little quicker, so it was a little more responsive, whereas the Alpha Crux read the lane a little bit earlier, then had a longer break point, and then just a smoother, continuous arc into the pocket. But overall, I think the Alpha Crux is a really good ball, and would definitely recommend it if you're looking for that higher end of your middle bag. If you feel like the Ion Max is too strong, then this ball I think is perfect because it's a step down from that, just a little bit, similar ball motion, and I think it's probably far more versatile and can be used on a lot more patterns than the Ion Max. So definitely think about getting an Alpha Crux if that's what you're looking for. Appreciate you watching, and remember, bowl up a storm.